One said, God is dead. Other said, all life is suffering. While one was unashamedly on the side of aristocratic tyranny, other was profoundly on the side of the common, the marginalized, the suffering, and the lepers. Hello, good evening, and welcome to a new episode of Argue a Breather Eating Quest. This is a very interesting video on a fabled or imagined conversation between Buddha and Nietzsche. Now I hope all of you know who Buddha was. Those who do not know who Nietzsche was, I'll try to portray a picture of Nietzsche before, starting on this debate. So the idea of this video is that think of two individuals. One is Buddha, the embodiment of peace, universal love, loving kindness, who thought that he is not truly liberated till all the souls are liberated from their suffering. On the other hand, there is a man called Nietzsche. Now, Nietzsche was one of the greatest German philosophers of past century. With him, atheism was complete. He was deeply misogynistic to the core. He was anti-Plato. He was anti-democrat. He turned every vice into virtue, so much so that we can trace the roots of fascism in him. As some agree, as some disagree, but with him, atheism was complete with his saying that God is dead and we have killed him. And then he was of the opinion that in the service of greater men, if hundreds and thousands of common men die and perish, it doesn't matter at all. He was anti-democrat to the core. So imagine the conversation between Gautam Buddha and Nietzsche when they confront God. Can any one of them produce an argument that would convince an impartial listener? I'll also give you a brief sketch of, Buddha, though Gautam Buddha, Bhagwan Buddha was a paradigmatic figure that needs no introduction. But again, the Buddha whose personal name was Siddhartha and family name was Gautam lived in North India in the 6th century BC. His father, Sudhodan, was the ruler of the kingdom of Sakya in modern Nepal. His mother was Queen Maya. According to the custom of the time, he was married quite young at the age of 16 to a beautiful and devoted young prince named Yashodhara. The young prince lived in his palace with every luxury at his command, but all of a sudden, confronted with the reality of life and the suffering of mankind, he decided to find the solution, the way out of this universal suffering. At the age of 29, soon after the birth of his only child, Rahula, he left his kingdom and became an ascetic in search of this solution. So think if Buddha and Nietzsche were confronted together, could either produce an argument that ought to appeal to the impartial listener? I am not thinking of political arguments. We can imagine them appearing before the Almighty, as in the first chapter of the book of Job, and offering advice as to the sorts of world he would create. What could either say? Now, Buddha and Nietzsche are convincing God about the kind of world that God should create. Now, what Buddha and what Nietzsche will say? Two completely diametrically opposite figures. Buddha would open the argument by speaking of the lepers, outcast and miserable, the poor, the toiling with aching limbs, and barely kept alive by scanty nourishment, the wounded in battle, dying in slow agony, the orphans ill-treated by cruel guardians, and even the most successful haunted by the thought of failure and death. From all this load of sorrow, he would say a way of salvation must be found, and salvation can only come through love. Now Nietzsche, a very arrogant philosopher, whom only omnipotence could restrain from interrupting, would burst out when his turn came. Good heavens, man, you must learn to be of tougher fiber, Nietzsche is saying to Gautam Buddha. Why go about sniveling because trivial people suffer? Or for that matter, because great men suffer. Trivial people suffer trivially, great men suffer greatly. And great sufferings are not to be regretted because they are novel. Your ideal is a purely negative one. absence of suffering which can completely secured by non-existence. I, on the other hand, have positive idols. I admire Emperor Frederick and Napoleon. For the sake of such men, any misery is worthwhile. I appeal to you, Lord, as the greatest of creative artists, do not let your artistic impulses be curbed by the degenerate, fear reading, fear ridden maunderings of this wretched psychopath. Now, here Buddha has been rendered as a wretched psychopath. Buddha, who in the court of heaven has learnt all history since his death, and has mastered science with delight in the knowledge and sorrow at the use to which men have put it, replies with calm urbanity. Now Buddha कैसे reply कर रहे हैं अपने gravitas और अपने calm and serene tone में. You're mistaken, Professor Nietzsche, in thinking my ideal a purely negative one. True, it includes a negative element, the absence of suffering. But it has, in addition, quite as much that is positive as is to be found in your doctrine, too. Though I have no special admiration for Napoleon, I too have my heroes, my successor Jesus, because he told men to love their enemies. The men who discovered how to master the forces of nature and secure food with less labor, the medical men who have shown how to diminish disease, the poets and artists and musicians who have caught glimpses of the divine beatitude. Love and knowledge and delight in beauty are not negations. They are enough to fill the lives of the greatest men that have ever lived. अब इस पे नीत्जे कैसे अपने एरोगेंट टोन में रिप्लाई करेगा ऑल द सेम नीत्जे रिप्लाइज योर वर्ल्ड वुड बी insipid. You should study Heraclitus, whose works survive complete in the celestial library, heaven में. Your love is compassion, which is elicited by pain. Your truth, if you're honest, is unpleasant and only to be known through suffering. As to beauty, what is more beautiful than the tiger, who owes his splendor to his fierceness? No, if the Lord should decide for your world, I fear we should all die of boredom. ये नीत्जे कह रहा है कि अगर भगवान गौतम बुद्ध के तर्ज पे पैरामीटर पे एक दुनिया बनाएंगे then all the people will die of boredom. That will be a boring world. ये नीत्जे का कहना है. You might, now Buddha replies, you might because you love pain and your love for life is a sham. But those who truly value life and love would be happy as no one can be happy in the world as it is. This is what a fabled debate between Nietzsche and Buddha. Now, इस पे Bertrand Russell क्या कहेगा? Think about it. So let me tell you, this conversation is imagined by Bertrand Russell in his book History of Western Philosophy, from the chapter on Nietzsche, part 3, book 3 of modern philosophy. So this whole conversation can be read in Russell's book History of Western Philosophy, which I have often suggested umpteen number of times at my channel. Now, to which Russell will reply, for my part, I agree with Buddha as I have imagined him. But I do not know how to prove that he is right by any argument such as can be us. Now, there is no impartial or abstract or scientific way to prove that Buddha is right. But of course, Russell says he will agree with Buddha than with Nietzsche. The ethical as opposed to the political question is one as to sympathy. Sympathy in the sense of being made unhappy by the sufferings of others is to some extent natural to human being. Young children are troubled when they hear other children crying, but when they grow up, this quality is lost. You see, this is a beautiful, anecdotal evidence quoted by Russell that young children are troubled when they hear other children crying, but वो quality जैसे जैसे वो बड़े होते हैं वो खो जाती. But the development of this feeling is very different in different people. Some find pleasure in the infliction of torture. Others, like Buddha, feel that they cannot be completely happy so long as any living thing is suffering. Most people divide mankind emotionally into friends and enemies, feeling sympathy for the former but not for the latter. And ethics, such as that of Christianity or Buddhism, has its emotional basis in universal sympathy. You see, this is a statement by Russell, who wrote Why I Am Not a Christian, who was a staunch atheist, who still supports that, of course, there is some love and a greater and profound love to be found in Christianity. Nietzsche is in a complete absence of sympathy. Nietzsche has a complete absence of sympathy. He frequently preaches against sympathy, and in this respect, one feels that he has no difficulty in obeying his own percepts. This is a fabled and imagined conversation between Nietzsche and Buddha. Tell me, how do you like the conversation? Would you like to support Buddha or Nietzsche with one of your arguments or the other? Please reply in the comment section. Please reply, how do you like the video? Please reply, have you seen any similar video by any teacher or any speaker on YouTube? Do let me know. If you have still not liked, subscribed, and shared my YouTube channel, Arguably the Reading Quest, please do that, guys. Happy reading, all of you.